everybody, this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And today, I was made to watch The Witch. The Witch.
Ha ha ha.
Ha ha, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it's styled that way. But if you haven't seen the Witch or any of its promotional materials, the logo, instead of a W, it was two V's. I don't know if that is a reference, if that is a historical thing.
I'm sure even a little research will tell us.
Yeah,
but
and
why would we do that?
I wonder if it's something like printers didn't have a W, they just had a V, and they just printed it twice because it was cheaper than like actually owning a dedicated W. Around
the Revolution, two S's were an F.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Anyway, The Witch is, of course, the 2015 Robert Eggers American folk tale. It's
at the end it says it's based on some real events and some not real events and
folk tales, just general tales of things that were going on around about 1630, I think is when it's set. Yeah. So this is let's not forget, this is the Spooktacular. Lightning crash. Yeah, I don't even think I still have that lightning crash. That used to be a joke I did in these where I go, oh, lightning crash, wolf howl, and I'd put in a lightning crash and a wolf howl, but I think I lost those sound effects, so I can't even do that joke anymore.
So that was 10 seconds well spent.
Because that was we've been doing this for 4 years. This is the fourth annual.
No.
The first year, we had to recap this. The first year was classic horror, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. The second year was Dracula movies. The third year was the Nick Cage Tober.
Which I think was our best, honestly.
Well, certainly maybe the most fun. I don't know. And this year is a return to sort of serious modern horror.
Okay.
I kind of originally thought of this Spooktacular as like scary movies. Like I wanted movies, and scary to you is movies that make you go, and like hide your eyes. That's what I consider a scary movie when watching movies with you. So like many of these movies, because I think we will have 5 because there's 5 weeks in October.
Yes.
Several of these will do that to you. This one, not as much.
There were a couple places where I said,
sure. Yes,
and there were a couple of jump scares too.
Sure.
We didn't count how many.
No. But yeah. So this is the modern horror Spooktacular, I guess. But yeah, if you haven't seen the Witch, it is set in like I said, around about 1630 in New England. Let's just say Mass, somewhere in what will one day become Worcester.
Yeah, I think they're saying the wilderness, but it seems that they're within a day's walk of what's now Boston. So yeah,
well, I don't think that in the initial is supposed to be Boston necessarily. That's just supposed to be the nearest.
Well, okay.
They call it the plantation. It's just supposed to be the nearest civilization. And the movie starts with the family, and I don't remember the last name if they even mention it of the family. The family, specifically the father, on trial, and he is on trial. They live in a Puritan society, like you do in the 1630s New England, and everybody's all Puritaned out. We'll talk about the Puritan stuff in this movie. I love it.
I forgot about the hats.
The hats, right? Yeah. And the family is on trial, and essentially the long and short of it is, it seems like the dad has been preaching his own sort of version of the Gospels, and the higher ups of the town object to that, and they basically say, you got to stop doing this, and he's like, I cannot. And this whole movie is in like oldie timey speak. Dost thou, wilt thou come hither? So we put on subtitles for you. I've seen this movie like 5 times. This movie, I watched it immediately after the first time I watched it. I immediately watched it again.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I loved that. And now I want to rewatch it.
What did you miss?
And figure out some of the dialogue that I missed.
Yeah. I didn't think it was that confusing, but I love having subtitles on anyway, because there are some lines in any movie that you miss, but I love the the vocal notes or the stage direction things, like it sometimes, and it's usually nothing special, eerie violins, okay, but sometimes it says things like, someone screaming obnoxiously, which is not from this, but I love the subtitles are a gift that keeps on giving.
My favorite subtitle in this was one that said, as one of the characters is going towards the barn and there are noises happening, it says increasingly ominous farm sounds. Ominous farm sounds. Yeah, increasingly ominous.
That's pretty good.
There was ominous was the most typed by the subtitling person.
The thesaurus did a lot of work with that one. Increasingly ominous. That's pretty
so anyway, they're thrown out of the towns of the plantation, as it's called, and forced to go out on their own. When they leave, they are a mother, a father, young twins, like under five-ish, a 10 to 12-year-old boy, and a 12 to 14-year-old girl. It's not really made a big deal out of, but the mother seems to have been pregnant, because by the time we catch up with them and their house is built and their farm is sort of partially done and up and running, they have a baby, baby Samuel. Basically, the long and short of it is these Puritan believers go out into the wilderness, and the wilderness takes advantage of them. Not in the way you might think, with bears and wolves and all of that, but it's the evil of the wood.
It's basically Color Out of Space, except
kind of
pilgrims.
Kind of. So I'll hit the main plot points just so we're all on the same page. The baby Samuel disappears very early in the movie. And this starts the family dynamic sort of unraveling. You find out that this Puritan family is built on this series of lies and deceptions and half-truths, and the father's deceiving the mother, the son is being pulled into the deceptions, the mother is, it's all around, it's all over.
No one's very stable.
And it slowly unravels. Basically the entire family unravels, and the movie ends with only one survivor who is left with no choice other than to become a witch. Or
just walk into the woods and let nature take care of itself. The twins just disappear. We don't know what happened, but
we know what happened to the twins. So the witch takes the twins. Anyway, near the climax, the climatic point of the movie, they have decided. So the brother Caleb has disappeared into the woods and turned back up, and he's bewitched. And they've decided that it's either Mercy and Jonas, who are the twins, or Thomason, who is the oldest, the oldest and the girl, played by Anna Taylor-Joy, in her first motion picture role, I do believe. One of them must be a witch, because he's clearly bewitched, and so they all get thrown into the barn with the suspected offender, Black Phillip, who is a black in color male goat. And overnight, a witch comes to visit them and suckles at the teat of the local sheep, and then takes the children. And we already know what the witch does with kids, because we're shown when she takes Samuel. She takes him back and cuts him.
Nice little fat baby.
Cuts the fat baby up and then pounds his supple flesh in a mortar and pestle, and then smears it all over her body.
It's just modern day lotion.
And uses it to fly. So the reason I say we know what happened to Mercy and Jonas is because at the end, when Thomason signs the book and becomes a witch and goes off into the woods, she finds several witches around a bonfire, and they all start to fly. So I would say that to me says that the two children were taken and ground up into flying paste.
Oh,
and that's how the witches are flying at the end.
Okay, see, I assumed that it was a cream to alter her appearance, because when we see her the first time, she's just your average 60-year-old woman, saggy, and you don't really see her face, but her hair is all gray and stringy and everything. And then we see her the next time, and she's young and beautiful.
So I would say that you are that this movie leaves that sort of stuff up to you. Now
Oh, great.
So now what the movie tells you explicitly is this woman slathers herself in baby cream and then flies.
Did we see her fly?
Yes.
When?
She gets on there's the scene with the shape moving up, and there's a huge moon, and there's a shape on the silhouette. She's literally flying on a broom.
Okay, that is not what I...
So anyway, she slathers herself in
right.
baby paste, and then she is on the floor of her hovel, like straddling a broom or a stick, and then she's shown to lift off the floor with the stick, and then the next thing we see is a full moon, and slowly a silhouette comes into view, and it is the form of this hag flying towards the full moon.
It was unclear to me what that shape was. I was like, is that her head? Is that her body?
No, it's her, and she's flying.
Okay.
And also, so this is one of the interesting things about this movie is you never really know who knows what and who's lying and who isn't, because Mercy and Jonas say that they saw the witch flying on her broomstick. And we are shown explicitly the witch flying on the broomstick after Samuel is taken and sacrificed. And yeah, I mean, the witch stuff, it is whatever it is. Like the sacrifice is to the devil. What they then are able to do with it, make themselves look young, fly, whatever. It's kind of left up to debate.
Well, and I guess since we see multiple witches at the end, those could be two different witches with different skill sets.
Yeah, the lady witch, the pretty lady witch and the not pretty lady witch. I tend to think it's probably the same witch. The Witch of the Wood. I think that is probably the same witch. But I am also possibly 100% wrong about these interpretations, but that's the thing. Like the movie isn't telling you, when I say wrong, I mean, there are other valid interpretations of what's happening. The movie isn't that interested in those details.
Yeah.
So it doesn't care kind of what conclusions the audience comes to.
Yeah. Well, there's a scene midway through the movie. So the mother, Catherine, she seems, mentally okay until Samuel disappears, and then she's just a wreck and she's crying all the time, which, frankly, relatable.
Yeah, like you would.
Yes. And at some point we say, it's been a week. Like, that is normal, but okay. Everyone else is acting like she's taking too long to get over this. Like, but anyway. And then Caleb dies, and they bury him, and she wakes up in the middle of the night, and we saw her take her cap off, which I think was the first time in the movie that we saw her bareheaded. And I thought, this is something. And then she's walking across their main room, and we see the silver cup behind her, which as was discussed earlier, her husband sold to get traps.
Yeah.
And
the silver cup is one of the deceptions that happens within the family.
And I thought, oh wait, hold on, did they find the cup? Okay, no, this is not real, right? And then she sees Caleb is sitting there, and he's perfectly fine, and he's got Samuel, and he's perfectly fine. And Samuel says something like, "We would like you to come with us. You could see us all the time. I have a book for you." And I was like, but there's no hint that, besides that, there's no hint that anything's wrong. And she holds the baby and she nurses the baby and blah, blah, blah. And then cut away to she's sitting there laughing, no baby in her lap, and a crow is pecking at her breast where Samuel would be nursing. And I was like, yeah, whether this is witchcraft or mental illness, like, this lady's not right.
Yeah. But we know whatever it is actually happened.
Yes.
On some level,
she wakes up the next day.
She has blood on her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the temptation with this movie is to kind of jump all around, but, and I don't know that that's a bad thing here, but yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, you're not going to understand anything we're talking about. Of course, pretty much always. But yeah, so that was the basic synopsis, right? That, Puritan family, more pure than Puritans. They
I was going to say, when the Puritans say, whoa, you're doing too much, right, bruh, you need to reevaluate some things.
Yeah. And they fall down and they fall down the path the rabbit hole of evil. And the thing one of the things that I like about this movie, and I guess this is, something worth discussing, is this, is this, are they led astray, or are they already led astray when they come to the wilderness, or does the wilderness lead them astray? You know, that's a thing I've always thought about with this, because there's a point where in the trial where the father says, you know, I won't be judged by untrue Christians or whatever.
Yeah. And
like, are they already, because they're basically being thrown out for being heretics, essentially, like for preaching some version of the gospel that doesn't adhere to the Puritan viewpoint.
Yeah. As a Christian myself, I would be interested to hear what their heresy was.
Yeah.
Like, were they, because the Puritans were not fun people.
Right.
And, you know, like we're told the story of Thanksgiving, like, we call them the pilgrims, which sounds better. They came so they could worship in their own way. Well, their own way was to be assholes.
Yes.
To
quite.
everybody. So not great, but I would like to know what they were doing that was unacceptable to the Puritans. Were they being stricter and more of jerks, or were they being kinder? It doesn't seem like it, but just from a theology perspective, I'd be interested to learn that. But you said a minute ago, they fell into evil or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they actually did. I think it was more like the paranoia of the wilderness and desperation over their poor, like nothing was growing.
Yeah.
They weren't getting any meat from hunting. They have all these goats. I don't know why they weren't just having a lot of goat meat, but
because that's a one-off, right?
But they had others.
They had like maybe 3.
Okay. Well,
maybe 3 or
right.
4.
Maybe they needed them for milk. I don't know. But
right.
Yeah, I don't think that necessarily they were succumbing to evil. I think they were paranoid about other family members thinking they were evil, and thinking that other family members were evil, and it just all the paranoia and anxiety fed on itself. I don't think it was evil in the way that, like, they were making sacrifices.
Well,
it's just
right. So
if anxiety and paranoia are evil, that's what they succumb to.
I don't necessarily mean that they succumb to evil prior to the end of the movie. I mean, so the thing I love about a movie like this is within the world of this movie, it's all real, right? The movie treats the religious aspects of it as real, the evil, the devil, the witches as real, right? Like, we're not clearly Black Phillip has power, because at the end of the movie he transforms into like a half goat humanoid. He makes the book materialize. We assume puts on the show for Catherine, the mother, with the cup back and the baby and everything.
He offers Thomasin the taste of butter. And
yes.
As someone who I'm trying to cut back my butter consumption, I've been on a buttered sourdough toast kick for like a year and a half.
Yes.
And I gotta quit. I can stop anytime I want to. But I was like, the taste of butter. Yeah. Yes. I would do a lot for that.
Well, and for her, that would be a luxury that she may have tasted at some point, but so he's tapping into the things, a pretty dress, see the world. Like, he's tapping into the things that she wants.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't mention glass windows, because they're talking about how they had those back in England. And
but so I guess then, because the world of the movie treats all this as serious, as legitimate, then is this not just all a test? Right. One thing about the biblical God is he's all about putting his most devout believers through some of the worst tests.
Yeah. Well, Old Testament God anyway. And
yes.
Catherine does mention at one point, she's like, I'm like Job's wife. And I don't know if Job was specifically being tested, but he certainly went through a lot of hardships.
Sure. So
I don't remember that part.
So that's right. So to me, that becomes the question, like, is this whole thing just a test from God that they spectacularly fail? Right. When William the father has the opportunity when he's given the opportunity to deceive and to lie, to sell the silver cup, or trade it to the traders for some traps, without telling his wife, he does.
Yeah.
When Caleb is given the opportunity to tell the truth about what him and his father were doing in the wood, which was checking the traps, he makes up a lie about apples. And then multiple other times, William has a chance to come clean about the silver cup. Thomason gets blamed for it by the mother. And even the mother withholds her ever weakening faith from William. And the twins, Mercy and Jonas, seem to lie constantly about various things.
Yeah.
Either or they actually saw the witch. Are they lying about seeing the witch flying? Or
yeah.
Did they say Black Phillip talks to him? At the end of the movie, we find out Black Phillip is in fact a conduit for the devil.
And that's kind of a brilliant bit of character making to have them be twins.
Yeah.
Because twins often, that's sort of just the conventional wisdom, is that twins have this connection deeper than any other siblings, and they have their own language and So the fact that they're always together. I think we hardly ever see one without the other. And they all see the things together, and they always back each other up.
Yes.
And they're always against Thomason, usually. But that's super effective in a way that it would not be if it was just one sibling. And they're just about the right age to be super bratty.
Oh, yeah.
So it's completely plausible. Anyone who's known a 4, 5, 6-year-old can believe, they would make stuff up and have good imaginations and all that stuff. That's that part. The writing of those is amazing.
Yeah. So I tend to fall on that side of it. That also the crops get blighted. The father can't bring in any game. It is just, if you look at it from a biblical standpoint, if you believe that their faith is as strong as they say it is, as it's depicted to be early in the movie, so strong that they're willing to get kicked out of their village and go on their own because their faith is so strong, this reads as just a series of biblical style tests of their faith. And they effectively fail almost every one. Each challenge they're given, right? The corn, which is the only crop they've managed to grow, gets blighted.
They can't finish the barn.
You can't finish the barn.
He's really good at chopping wood, though.
Yeah, my favorite aspect of the father character is all he can do is chop wood. And it comes up a couple of different times. But yeah, he is completely ineffectual at doing any of his sort of manly duties around there. He's obviously getting by. They managed to build that house, and they built the temporary barn where the sheep are and stuff. And he's done a hell of a lot better than I would do. But yeah, the only thing he's actually good at is chopping wood. And in the end, when he dies, he's covered in the wood that he chopped. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting symbolism that was
nice and poetic.
Yes. Yeah. That he is unable to provide anything but the wood, and we aren't really, we're not in winter. So
yeah, I was trying to tell what type of year it was. I don't in the filming is everything is very bleak looking.
Yes.
The only bright colors you see are the witch has a red cloak, which you see once or twice.
Yeah.
And then blood. And everything else is this sort of grayed out.
Muted. Yeah. Desaturated.
No one has, bright hair, bright clothes. There's not a lot of green grass or anything. And it's very effective.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, I tend to think of it. I would say it's in my head, it's like fall.
Well, yeah, because if they're expecting corn to be ready, that's probably late summer, early fall, which in New England, August, September could be chilly. Who knows? Yeah.
So yeah, it's never really weather is never really brought into it. They're never shown to be, their breath isn't visible. So it's not cold. And they talk about winter and they talk about spring. Yeah. So it's got to be either summer or fall. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I've always sort of viewed this movie as that, as a test of faith for these characters that they fail spectacularly.
You know what though? I've noticed, I think some people who are religious sort of bring this idea of evil and temptation, and you always have to watch out for XYZ. They bring it to their own faith. And other people, I guess I'm part of this group, like, I acknowledge that I'm going to mess up, but I don't see it as the evil one is there lurking, waiting to trap me all the time.
Yeah.
I think this family falls into the first group where there's evidently been enough conversation about witches that the twins have this whole storyline going for the witch.
Oh, yeah.
And I you notice that with, I think, a lot of conservative Christians today. There's this big, elaborate tale of this entity is waiting to trap you, and this whole movement is waiting to trap you,
Yes.
and the whole thing with groomers and blah 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 blah. You know, and I think, I don't know, the world isn't that interested in me personally. Like, I think there's an opportunity all the time to do the wrong thing, and you can call that sin. And is there a devil? Maybe. I don't know if he is out there being that literal to try to trap me and you and this person and that person. But all that to say, I think they kind of created their own downfall by having this focus on the devil and who's a witch, and, you know, and how much of that was created by their time in the plantation. I don't know. And maybe that's just part of Puritanism in general. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they would struggle to step away from that, because you are talking about, you know, like 1600s.
I can't remember when the witch trials were. And again, we don't know where this is.
But certainly, like, the father knows, like, he performs right after their son dies in spectacular fashion, he performs a witch test right then and there, you know. So, like, it's obvious, and he talks about it in this way that, like, you get the point that it was just part of their life. And it could be that that's potentially related to what they were kicked out about.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he was preaching of, you know, evil and witches, and, you know, it's sort of, if you juxtapose the witch trials, that sort of fervor that happened around that, if you don't have a willing community, then the one person who's crying witch doesn't gain any traction. Yeah. And if he's the one person crying witch and it's not a willing community, then all of a sudden he's the outcast, as opposed to the way the witch trials went, where it was spun around the other way. When you've got that willing community, that mob mentality grows and reason goes out the window.
Well, and in a way, the family was that willing community. They all started to believe, and particularly you know, once Caleb dies, who was one of the more saner family members, Thomason seems fairly level-headed. But the mother is unstable.
Yes.
And Jonas and Mercy are kids. And so, nobody believes anybody. The parents by that point are willing to believe that any of the remaining children is a witch. And Jonas and Mercy are like, it's her. And Thomason's like, it's not. It must be them. You know, so, you do have that willing community that creates this sort of maelstrom of paranoia. Someone is a witch. This is all someone's fault.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, right, is that for the way that they talk about themselves, right? There's a scene with William and Caleb, the father and son, in the woods, and he's asking Caleb questions about his nature as a person, and it's, you know, he's saying, I'm just for sin. I'm imperfect. You know, he's basically, and his father's just like, yes, good, you know, good. And they have that sort of, that they are just this open vessel for sin that evil can just pour itself into. And when they pray in this, like, I know I'm sinful, and I know my nature is sinful. I beg you to save me from it, you know, God, for this, you know, not for my sake, but for the sake of your son who made his sacrifice. Like, the way that they pray is so interestingly Puritan. Yeah. But yeah, one of the things that I think about when I watch this movie is the various sins, right? Like I kind of meant to watch a little closer for this time, but you can see some of sort of almost the 7 deadly kind of sins.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, because like there's one that's clearly at play, and then I was trying to match up some of the other ones.
Which one?
Lust.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, so Caleb has a thing for his sister.
Well, he's just noticing that she has boobs.
Yes, yeah, and that may or may not mean he has a thing for her, right? But also the mother, I think, is worrying that her daughter is becoming a woman and, is then in this weird way direct competition for her.
Oddly, so this family structure, a girl and a boy, and then twins, boy-girl twins, that's Flowers in the Attic.
Oh,
and they all sleep together in the attic. So it's not exactly, because in Flowers in the Attic, the boy is older and then the girl.
These kids all sleep in the attic.
Exactly. Like, that's just a little, I don't think that's planned, but that's
Robert
just a little
Eggers,
extra.
V.C. Andrews fan. Confirmed.
Right.
And so the father, his sin is pride. He even just explicitly says it because he is prideful in his belief that he knows the word of God better than the people in the village.
And then the inability to turn around and go back and say, I'm sorry, we were wrong.
And then he won't overcome that, so it's multiple. Yeah. And of course, lying, everybody's lying. So it's a family full of sinners. I think of all of the people, the mother is maybe the least sinful. Like I think she's she covets because you could say she covets because she has the silver cup, right? And that's a worldly possession that she's coveting.
Well, I don't know. From my viewpoint in 2024, I don't think that's
but from a Puritan viewpoint,
yes.
And she even tries to make a point of saying that it's not that her desire for the cup is not motivated by sin.
Yeah.
Even though a Puritan would say that it is, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a nice little switcheroo, though. She's upset that the cup seems to be lost, and her husband is just working up to saying, "I sold it for stuff," and he's not there yet. And she says, "We could have sold it."
Right.
Which is an interesting little twist. Like she probably she misses the thing because it's pretty and because it's sentimental, but also it was resourced.
Yeah, and that's what she's right. That's the point when she says, like, it wasn't because I coveted it; it was because.
Yeah.
So depending on whose viewpoint you're looking at it, to William, it probably looked like she was coveting this earthly object. But yeah, she's saying like, hey, this was a fallback. This was like it's supposed to be our insurance policy.
I think I'm remembering the 7 deadly sins. I can never remember all 7 of them at once. There's always one that I'm missing.
Gluttony. And sloth is in there because they're constantly they're accusing Thomasin of not doing enough, like, not seeing to her work. She forgets to put the goats away and stuff. Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say was, I think, again, more conservative Christian communities regard despair as a sin because you're not trusting that God will make it all okay.
Oh, yeah.
Although when your child has disappeared, I think despair is warranted. But I would say, that's what the mother falls into.
Oh, sure. And that's perhaps why they're saying it's been a week. Why are you still wallowing in this sin?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Can I tell you, if my infant disappeared, I would be bedridden for a month.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't even. Ugh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We were talking a little bit about the aesthetics of this movie, which is what I just wrote on the board. Aesthetics. Like you were saying, everything's desaturated. The color is very sparsely used. There's a lot of symbolism visually and just symbolism in general in the movie. And there's just a lot of really good shots. Like for someone who hadn't made, I don't think, a full feature film before they made this, Eggers just knocks it out of the park with all that stuff. Like the way he shoots the animals. There's a rabbit that reoccurs that is seemingly in league with the witches. It shows up in odd places. It leads Caleb astray in the woods. But yeah, the way he shoots things. So I think the greatest single shot ever put on film is The Exorcist. When he arrives at the house, he's under the streetlight. He looks up at the window. That's the greatest single shot ever done. This movie has maybe one of my like 2 or 3 other favorite shots, and it goes by with almost no fanfare. It's not dissimilar to the Exorcist shot, although that shot then goes on to become the poster and the video, the VHS cover, and becomes, famous.
Iconic for the movie.
Yeah. So when they leave the village, they ride away on their wagon and they sort of ride off into the mist. And then there's a scene at night and they're set up with their camp and there's a fire and the whole family's around it. And it's just one third of the right side of the picture is just blackness. And there's it's pitch black and there's firelight casting up on the trees and on the family. And that shot, it's just like 3 seconds. But that shot as a moment on film, I think is right up there with The Exorcist getting out of the car shot, because it's just, this movie is, a lot of it is about the dread and the uncertainty of the position that this family finds themselves in. And that moment sets the stage for what's to come. This just moment of like, oh, like they are just they're alone in the pitch black of this wilderness. The darkness is encroaching on them in the scene in the same way that it will for the remainder of the movie. The light can only keep it out for so long. And when they stray from the fire, when they go in the woods, when they leave the farm, they go into the dark and bad things happen. And that shot is just, like I said, like if you said right now, give me your 3 favorite shots ever in film. Number 1 is the Exorcist shot. Number 2 is what I call the one-of-a-kind knife shot in 12 Angry Men, where they put the murder weapon in the table, and it's this very specific looking Chris blade, switchblade knife. And, Fonda pulls it out of his pocket and puts it down, and you have this one shot of the two one-of-a-kind knives side by side on the table, and that moment is just because what it means in the movie. And then I would right now, I would put that camp scene third in line of my favorite shots ever put on film. And I think there's a lot of moments in this movie that kind of go that way, like still frames that would just be amazing paintings. I think at the end of the movie, after the Thomason and the twins are in the makeshift barn with the sheep, and the witch comes, and Thomason survives, and the father comes out the next day. The Mercy and Jonas are gone, taken by the witches, and the father comes out the next day, and he's gored by Black Phillip, and then dies in his woodpile. And then the mother comes out, and she's basically like, she sees her husband dead and the kid's gone.
She's lost it.
And she's lost it. And we don't really know whether or not the mom signed the book in the night before or what happened there. We're never really explicitly told. And they fight, and Thomason, gets her in the neck with a spade or whatever, gets her mom in the neck with a spade and kills her. And she is just done, blood on her face and on her clothes. And in her desperation, she goes out to the barn with a light. And I love the scene there where Black Phillip is in front of the barn and she comes out with the light. And then Black Phillip is just like gives her a little nod and just turns around and walks in the barn like, oh, come into my office. Yeah.
I was thinking about, how do you train a sheep or goat to do that? Like, I was imagining, like, behind there, do they have somebody going, okay, come here.
Yeah, there's a guy with, whatever, a sheep treat, whatever a goat treat is. And then when she comes in and she talks to Black Phillip, and he almost doesn't do any, she's about to get up, and the thing I love about the devil in this movie, or Black Phillip or whatever, is that he talks in a whisper.
Yeah.
What is it thou doth seek?
He's very silky.
Yes. Would thou like the taste of butter? It's ASMR because he's got a lot of stuff going on in his mouth.
If the devil ever comes to me with the taste of butter, I'm so sunk.
Oh, you're done. Yeah. No, I know. I would.
You are the one. You got me that stinking Butterbell that encouraged me to have butter all the time. You're
conveniently room temperature spreadable butter at any time you want.
All the time. You encouraged me to buy the sourdough. Oh, I did, yes. I see your game now.
I did, yes. I mean, it's, and then, when he does reveal himself, there's the moment where she's about to sign the book and he comes around her and you can barely even make out that it's a face. Yeah. You can see like the bridge of a nose and he's got this, like swashbuckler's hat on. And, she says, I don't know how to sign my name. And he puts his hand very like suggestively on her shoulder and says, I will guide your hand. That moment is another one of those where I'm just like, there was a time where I think I've talked about this before. I had a dream of being a filmmaker and I would have hoped to come up with one scene, that one moment in a movie that is that good. And this movie has like 4 or 5 of them that are just that next level. That are just like, put this on a poster, put this on a, I want a painting of this. So there's just the design aesthetic of this movie reinforces that visual aesthetic, the like cinematography that is all bleak and desaturated, and there's lots of shots of just like the woods and trees, and sometimes the shots are very claustrophobic. And in the forest, especially the somehow this widescreen movie feels like it's down to like an old school 4:3 aspect ratio because the trees are just so intrusive into the scenes. And then the clothing is all, like you said, it's muted and it's gray and it's white and it's layers and layers and just
it's very constricting.
Yes, and everything about the way that the family. They gather at night for their meal, the candlelight, the darkness, like just again, like for this shouldn't be possible for someone to make a movie this good this early in their career. And he would then go on to do The Lighthouse after this, which is amazing. And it's black and white.
That's another, I haven't seen that.
That movie is crazy. It's very good, but it is very weird in a way that you kind of have to be willing.
From what I've heard about it, yes.
Yeah, you kind of have to be willing to go on the ride. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that when I've watched this movie like the 3rd and the 4th time, those were the things that I was really taking in, that I was really watching, was all of that. The visual stuff, the cinematography, the set design, the costume design, all of that stuff. So good. So good. I don't have a whole lot more to talk about. This is something probably we should have done earlier on. But this kind of became this weird free flow conversation. What are your thoughts? Scary? Dreadful? Like
no, just kind of. I really don't like goats.
Goats are weird, right? They have those weird sideways pupils.
Yeah,
they're just weird.
Well, and my brother has a farm with some livestock, and at one point I asked him teasingly, "Were you ever going to get goats?" And he said, "No, those things are way too smart."
Yeah, goats are pretty
smart. Freaky and smart. Like, no, thank you. I need my farm animals to be dumb.
Yeah, and they speak in a whispered tone
and offer you butter. Yeah.
Just speak up, goat. Just talk in a normal voice,
I'm
goat.
hard of hearing.
I'm going to tap my nails on the microphone now.
My cloven hooves. I'm gonna dance across the.
Look into my sideways pupils.
But yeah, goats are mildly creepy when they're not familiars of the devil, and then
either way.
Yeah, this reminded me a little bit of a Spanish movie that I saw a year or two ago. Set around the same time. It's called Coven of Sisters, if I'm thinking of the right one. And it's it's not a horror movie, although the ending is a little bit horrible. But it's, again, these, I think, 5 or 6 girls, a little bit older than Thomas in here, who are accused of being witches, and they're just in a cell kind of waiting for their fate. And they end up flying in the end. Well, you're not sure if they're flying or jumping off a cliff, but similar time periods, similar ideas of witches, although there you see witches burned at the stake, which is terrible. I don't know if that would have been Thomason's fate if her family assumed that she was a witch.
Well, they say they're going to take her back to the village, and there's going to be an inquiry, basically.
So probably, yeah. So she's probably doing better this way than she would have otherwise. But if you like the witch aspect of this, that was another good movie about it. Not so much a horror movie, not exactly history either, but somewhere in the middle. Sort of horror, as in the horror of the human condition.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that.
But yeah, I don't know. I get a little upset, as is appropriate, I think, when I think about the witch trials and all the ways that we have labeled women who stepped outside the norm as deviant and evil, and punished them for it. Women who wanted to support themselves, women who didn't marry, women who had some sort of physical difference, women who just wanted to live the fuck alone in a cottage in the woods. I mean, I was thinking about the Bell Witch. That's what it's called. The one where it's Donald Sutherland is the father of this family in Kentucky, and this whole in several ways the household is seemingly stricken by a witch. Mm-hmm. And she's not. She's just this woman who lives on her own and doesn't want to be cheated in business, and gets real mad when Donald Sutherland tricks her. And it turns out that all these things are manifestations of a bad deed that Donald Sutherland has done. Mm-hmm. So it's not exactly witchcraft. There may be some supernatural, but yeah, that woman was just saying, no, you promised me this much money and you got to pay me this much money. That's it, But women standing up for themselves, women being different, gets them sentenced to drowning or burning at the stake or whatever. And that kind of thing still happens. It's just a different kind of punishment. So it gets me, as I said, rightfully upset to think about. So
our previous movie was kind of a version of that.
Yes,
of the Contender.
Yes. This was a different kind of fate for Thomason. I don't know if this is a happy ending for her, but
yeah. And I mean, I 100% get your point. But I think this movie is not interested in that aspect of witches at all. Like it is because in its world, witches are real.
Sure. I'm just,
I 100%. You can't help but have your mind go there when you're watching a period movie about witches and stuff. Like, I get, like, it's one of those things where you can tell a story that has no subtext, but you can't keep people from seeing subtext.
Oh yes, anytime you have Puritans and witches, there is
like
oodles of subtext.
I'm sure that there is some elaborate subtext to this movie, but on its surface, this is a movie that assumes God is real and witches are real, and they're in and the devil is in an eternal battle, and Puritans are God's warriors and witches are the devil's warriors, and don't go in the woods. Mm-hmm. No, I know what you mean 100%. But I think the final thing I wanted to hit on is just like, this movie is one of those movies that when it came out really had no names in it, mm-hmm. but had just these actors that just turned in amazing performances.
Yeah.
All around.
Yeah.
I think the sleeper, because I think Anna Taylor-Joy is great. Ralph Ineson, I think it is, as William, as the father, is great. Mm-hmm. Your favorite, Harvey Scrimshaw, as Caleb,
that's like out of Dickens. That's amazing.
Yeah, has a great scene in his death scene, but I think the Catherine is the one that really carries the movie, because she brings that complex character who is, she's in 1 minute she is distraught because of the loss of one child, and the next minute she is mustering the troops to look for Caleb and Thomason when they've gone missing. Mm-hmm. She conveys these different these highs and lows, and she gets a great moment to basically say like what I think is a real thing that happens to a lot of devout Christians who have trouble dealing with the hardships that they encounter in life, that she basically loses her faith by the end of the movie, that the loss of now multiple children, and that just the situation, the scenario, like she's done with it. And she gets a great sort of pseudo monologue to kind of talk about that, and talk about how it's not that she can't go back. What she says, when she was a young girl, she had a dream about how she, met Jesus on earth, and she was in the presence of his love, and it was so great. And now she can't get back to that place. She can't. Yeah. She's basically lost that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't expect that sort of ecstasy on earth anymore. I would like to hope for it. I would like to expect it. I have never, I don't know. I call this losing my faith, call it a much more reasonable expectation of what faith can give me. I don't know. I think you're just setting yourself up for failure there. If you're expecting this perfect ecstatic faith all the time, and to never be discouraged, never be worried, and never be scared.
Well,
and
I think as a Puritan, she is more than prepared to be tested. I think she's just saying that it's gone beyond her threshold for testing. Yeah. And even, when trying to comfort her, William says, God has never taken a child from us until now. Like, what did we do to deserve that kind of grace from him?
Yeah, that was kind of a curious thing. I guess he just meant miscarriage or
childbirth, miscarriage. That they had in a time where it was not uncommon to have 6 kids and have had 10 pregnancies to get there.
Well, yeah, that's sort of terrifying. She's had 3, at that point, 4 pregnancies, and to say, oh my gosh, what are the odds that we wouldn't have any dead baby? Like, that doesn't.
Well, and especially the twins. I don't imagine that was a very common thing. So like from William's perspective, who is the devout of the family. Like, they're blessed, and like in fact, they didn't deserve to not lose any kids. So it's really just they're just paying the penance that they should have already had to pay by losing Samuel with
interest.
Right. But yeah, that's Kate Dickey is her name. She's been in a lot of stuff. It's actually funny. Both lead parents actors, the William and Kate and Catherine, actually were both in The Green Knight, which is another great movie that is very much in the vein of this.
Is that the one with Dev Patel?
Yes.
I wanted to see that and I didn't. So.
Yeah. It's is it Scott Lowry? Is that the director's name? He's made some great David Lowry, sorry. Okay. He's made some great stuff. Like next time I get a chance to do an after the date or the first date or something, I may do The Green Knight, just because I love that movie. It's that sort of, it's not, I say it's in the vein of this movie, but I mean in like the way in which it's just a really well made film. But it's more sort of a fantasy. I mean, it's a retelling of The Green Knight, of like the was it Percival story of the Knights of the Round Table and stuff. Just a bunch of solid actors in this. Great performances, great directing, great cinematography. Like even the music, which is sparse and is just a lot of ominous atmospheric stuff, is just great. I think the last thing I wanted to mention is my I've got those. I already talked about those scenes that I think are like art on film. But my favorite thing that happens in this movie is when Thomason and Caleb go missing, and the parents are yelling into the woods for them and looking for them. It pans by the twins, and they're tied together and then tied to a fence post.
I saw.
Like on a leash, I'm like, yes, those kids need to be on a leash more often.
Well, we were talking about when we did the Little House on the Prairie episode, they just like put Carrie in the river and she stayed put. These kids need a little bit of that.
Oh, these kids would never sit in the river. No. They would be right out of the river.
Which is funny because you think of Puritan children as extremely well behaved because they've been whipped, because spare the rod, spoil the child,
Yes.
Yeah. One other thing. Even so we see like one scene of the happy family, happy sort of, before Samuel is taken. And I mean, literally, he is taken from Thomason is playing peekaboo with him. And, she puts her hands over her eyes. And then
the scene where he's introduced is the scene where he's taken.
Yeah. And I mean, like, so it's not like, oh, he crawled away. Like, no, he's just gone in an instant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Literally.
3 seconds.
So from the beginning, you feel the explanation that a witch took him is completely
like
plausible.
Something's going on.
Yeah. But even before then, I got this feeling that the mother was, there's this concept that they call parentifying. When you have a big family, bigger than this usually, the eldest daughter gets a lot of the parenting work.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's like the housework. Sometimes it's literally watching the children, and she has to do both.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, even before the baby disappeared, there was something not entirely right about this family, which is not fair to, extrapolate from that one thing. But I thought,
yeah. And speaking of you said the happy family. One of the things that I do like that this movie does is there's a moment with Thomason and Caleb in the woods where she's talking to him about being in England before they came to America.
Yeah. And
she's talking about what seemed like a very happy time. So I like the idea of imagining that, in an alternate reality, they had a happy life.
They had something good
in England with their glass windows and their dog Fowler
lying in the sun.
And the dad is even joking. The dog is lying on the table in the sun, and the dad says, "Oh, we'll have him for meat." Yeah, in this joking way that you can't imagine William doing now. That they're just up against their very survival every minute of the day.
Yeah.
But the actual last thing. This movie is one of the movies in this genre that's becoming increasingly my favorite genre of sort of horror or suspense thriller type movies, which I kind of think of as this sort of slow burn, ominous sort of category. These movies where not a lot of stuff happens. The most famous one, of course, is the one that put me to sleep. The Pretty Things.
Yes.
But yeah, like Eggers and Osgood Perkins, who did The Pretty Things. He did Blackcoat's Daughter, which is, I think, the poster child for this genre of this just ominous, like you don't know what is happening, what is going on, when is something going to happen. These movies, the longer that sort of nothing happens, the bigger the payoff is when it does. And I think this movie differs in that something happens real early on. Yeah. But then there are it's punctuated with these moments of like, oh, they're going hunting, they're looking for the kid, there's these moments of calm, and you just know more is going to happen. You just, what is the next thing that's going to, beset this family? Yeah. And this is quickly sort of becoming my favorite genre of movies in this sort of horror suspense thriller category of just like what they build you and build you and build you, and a lot of times the payoff is not, if you haven't been along for the ride, and I think that this was your case with the All the Pretty Things, or I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the whatever, whatever the name of that movie is. It's a Netflix movie. If you can't go along for the ride, then it doesn't work.
Yeah. It's kind of, you could maybe call them domestic horror, because it's because the scary thing is not a monster, is not a virus, is not an alien. It is something within your family, your home.
A lot of times it's just simple. It's just a person killing people. Yeah. And sometimes it's a witch, but just this idea
it's homegrown.
This new crop of filmmakers that are not trying to make like these kills per minute horror suspense movies. They're taking their time, and you just Black Christmas that we watched was a lot like that. A lot of nothing happens in that movie. There's just a lot of and the beautiful thing in those movies is often when the audience has some information that the characters don't. But even better, like in the Blackcoat's Daughter, is when the audience doesn't have information, when there's a twist or there's a moment in there somewhere, but I always think of this as one of the movies that's in that category. Other movies like It Comes at Night, or movies in that same kind of genre of like, sometimes on a I find myself going, when is something going to happen in this movie? And then I go, oh no, when is something going to happen in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So it's helped me to readjust the way that I think about slow burn horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one that I think, despite having some act one action, functions in the same way. They're just like, well, how is this going to resolve? Like, is there a witch? Like there's a witch, but like, is it really a witch? Like, or is it just some old lady that eats babies? Like
she just does it because they're delicious.
She's just putting the baby balm on.
I
baby balm.
I do when I'm taking care of a baby. I do pretend to eat them. I say,
that's only natural.
Yes, you say babies are delicious. You don't mean literally, but well, folks, I think we've said all that we can say about the Vavitch. That's the last time I'll make the joke. We would love to know what you think. Do you have any other companion movies that fans of this should watch that are about witches? Let us know. We would love to hear from you. You can reach us 2 ways. You can send us an email or DM us on Facebook. Handle's the same for both. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. We're at gmail.com or Facebook Messenger. Also on Facebook, you can find links to our latest episodes. Typically, we have episodes every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you'll be listening, there'll be a new episode in the queue. But for the month of October, we are doing movies every single week. It is Spooktacular, the 4th annual one. So next week, we will be back with a new movie, and Dave is hosting. And what are we watching next week, Dave?
I'm hosting all of these. I mean, though, you could bring a horror movie if you do you have any?
There is one scary movie that I would love to show you, but I have not found it anywhere. It's called The House of Dies Dreer. Terrified me when I was like 8, like in a good way, but scary. But it's based on a book. It was on PBS, so so don't have high expectations. But I would love to show it to you, but I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah. So next week we'll step it up with let's do The Descent next week.
Okay.
You'll never spelunk again.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna anyway, so.
You'll never spelunk for the first time.
Right. So I'll really never do it ever.
Never, really.
All right. Well, no spelunking here. This has been, we'll see you next week with The Descent.
Thanks, Dad.
Where, is that a dad
That
joke?
wasn't even a dad. That's an insult to dads for me to call you a dad.
I didn't, yeah. Okay. Anyway, we'll see you next time with The Descent. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. Spelunk. Spelunk you later.
It's Spooktacular.
This is the 4th annual Spooktacular?
No.
Classic horror movies, Dracula, Nicolas Cage.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the last one was Nicolas Cage horror movies, remember?
Holy crap. Yeah.
I mean, we do like 25 of these a year. If we're over 100 episodes, we've been doing this for 4 years.
Yeah, I just didn't think that we'd done Spooktacular that many times.
We have.
Hey, everybody, this is Marian Cowigowan.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And this time, I was... Stop it.
You got your breath was not... You got to pace it.
I ran out of air. Yeah.
Jeez.
Okay. Hey, everybody, this is Marian Cowigowan.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married...
What? I didn't do it.
You did. It was your face.
You don't have... Your breathing is off.
I took a breath at the right time.
No, that was not the right time.